everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today, I'm talking about the movie John Wick Chapter 4. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you've not seen the movie yet and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So John Wick Chapter 4 is the continuing adventures of John Wick after the first movie. They all kind of take place pretty quickly after each other. I think this one, maybe there's a little bit more space between them, but yeah, he's still on the run from the Assassin's Guild or whatever that is trying to kill him. So yeah, and this movie goes all across the world. We are introduced to all sorts of new characters. As far as what I liked about the movie, Keanu Reeves, he works as John Wick, mostly because he doesn't have a lot of lines. So it kind of works out well for him, but he really handles a lot of the physicality and the stunts and everything really well. It's quite impressive. Laurence Fishburne was great in this. I thought his character died in like the second one, but he came back at some point, I guess. I don't know. Ian McShane's always good. Donnie Yen as Kane was a big standout for me as well. I really liked him. And of course, he's a famous Japanese actor who's been around for a long time. I think he also was in something else, one of the Rogue One, I think, playing also a blind character. Rina Sawayama as Akira, I thought was great. I really enjoyed her stuff. And I thought, again, she did a really good job with all the stunts and all the fighting and everything else. And I'm curious to see, it looks like we might be getting more with her character. And then Scott Adkins as Killa was a big standout. I've known Scott Adkins for a while. He's sort of a famous martial artist and actor. But in this one, he's wearing a big fat suit that's got to weigh, I don't know, 50, 60 pounds. And he's able to go around and, do all these fight scenes and everything. It's really impressive and really cool. And his acting was really quite good as well. So I thought he did a great job. And I hope to see more from him. In addition to that, I also liked Hiroyuki Sanada as Koji. And Shamier Anderson is Mr. Nobody. He was a fun character who at first I didn't understand what his deal was, but as the movie went on, I liked him a lot. Clancy Brown, who of course I know as Lex Luthor on the animated Superman show, is in here as the Harbinger. I think he was also in Highlander and a bunch of other stuff. I really like the settings here. We got to see Japan, Germany, France, somewhere in the Arabian Desert, I believe, all sorts of different places. This was all over. I didn't look up filming locations at first. I thought, oh, well, they could have filmed this in California, but as far as I could see, they actually just filmed it in those places. I could have looked it up, but I didn't. The fight choreography in this was great. It's honestly really amazing to the point where sometimes during a fight, I'll even start looking at the people in the background and kind of see what they're doing. And in this, everybody's just perfect. They all know exactly what they're doing. It's this beautifully choreographed dance, and it's great. It's really good. I also thought there's some really cool cinematography in this, some really interesting shots and some camera movements and the shot composition. There's one scene in particular where they're talking to Killa and they're at the poker table and this sort of curved blade fan is spinning around and the shadow is casting down on them. Really cool shot. I really liked it a lot. And there's a lot of that, a lot of kind of really cool kind of shots that I really liked the way they looked. There's some very inventive kills in this for a movie that's especially on the fourth movie in the franchise. It came up with some really cool, really fun, interesting ways to kill people, which I always enjoy. There's the blind swordsman stuff, all the stuff with Kane. Reminded me, of course, of Zatoichi, the blind swordsman, and even the Rutger Hauer movie, Blind Fury. But yeah, really cool, really inventive stuff there, like where he's got the little things that beep, so it tells him where people are, so he knows when they're coming, so he can like shoot at them and stuff. Like really cool, really fun stuff. I really like that poker table scene with Scott Adkins as Killa. The entire thing was just great. I really liked all the Warriors references in this. So there's a DJ who you see a close up of her mouth as she's talking, and she calls people boppers, and she even plays Nowhere to Run. Not the original Martha and Vandella's version, but the Warriors didn't play that either. They played a cover, but a cover of that song. And yeah, it was really fun. I really liked that. Warriors is a great movie, so it's always cool to see a reference to that. I like there's this overhead sequence toward the end where he's just going in and shooting all these people. I think it was a reference to Taxi Driver, but really cool. I really liked the way that looked. It reminded me too of this video game I used to play called Postal. So cool. A lot of cool music in this as well. I particularly like the painted black cover that the DJ plays there when they're in Paris, but it's in French. Great song. That was cool. I like the score in this too. And the music overall throughout I thought was really good and really effective and kind of helped to build this sort of scene. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. And Bill Skarsgård death at the end was a great moment. The audience like cheered when it happened. They loved to see him die. He was a very hateful character and easy to hate. So easy to cheer for when he dies. So all good stuff there. As far as what I disliked about it, although I think Keanu Reeves is great in this and probably the best role he's had other than maybe Ted and Bill and Ted, he's not a good actor. He's really not. He's great. He's a nice guy. He's a movie star by all means, a national hero, but there's still some lines where he delivers them where I'm like, yeah, I feel like you could have delivered that line a little better. But I don't know. And Bill Skarsgård, too. I think he's a great actor. I like him in most things I see him in. He was fine in this. I liked him in this. But it's maybe a little too much over the top for me with the German accent and everything. And I mean, I don't know. I just feel like if you're going to do that, Daniel Bruhl is right there. You could, or Christoph Waltz. There's a number of other actors who, and again, his accent wasn't bad. It was fine. It just, I know he doesn't normally speak that way. So for me, I'm just like, all right, he's having fun. He's chewing the scenery. I see why he took the thing, but I wasn't super impressed with him as a villain. Keanu, there's some stuff with nunchucks, which are really cool, but I wasn't super impressed with Keanu Reeves' nunchuck skills, although there are some cool deaths and some cool stuff he does with them. And honestly, maybe the way he's using them is more realistic. And I'm just used to the fancy kind of flashy stuff you see in movies, but it definitely looked, he tried his best. And the guy's in his 50s, I think. So, and he definitely did better than I could do, but still a little bit of me where I'm like, this John Wick guy, nunchucks aren't his best weapon, are they? I was super stoked to see Lance Reddick in here because he had just passed away. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Lance Reddick is in these movies. It's great. I'll see him. And he's got a couple scenes in the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, man, that guy's a great actor. And then he gets shot immediately. And I'm like, oh, wow. Of course, the movie didn't know that when they were making it. And that's part of the story and everything. But it does kind of suck that this guy, I think his last movie or one of his last movies, he dies on screen and immediately at the very beginning. So we don't really get to see him. So that bummed me out. Again, not the movie's fault. They didn't know that was going to happen, but would have been nice to keep him around. So the movie kind of starts out with John Wick in the desert chasing some people down. That's early on. And then there's a sequence for about 15 or 20 minutes or so where they're in like Japan, I think. And it was interesting. Osaka, I believe. It was interesting. I really like some of the visuals there in Japan, but it definitely dragged on a little bit for me. It got to the point where there's, like I said, 15, 20 minutes in there where it's like, where's John Wick? These people are cool. They're interesting. But like, I'm watching a John Wick movie to see John Wick. You know what I mean? Like I felt like that part a little bit. Now, once that part was kind of over with and we got to the big action scene where John Wick shows up and the people show up to get him, great. And from then the movie's pretty much nonstop action. There's a couple kind of brief pauses, but for the most part, it's just nonstop action from there on out. But that 15, 20 minute period there, maybe it wasn't that long, was a bit slow for me. The movie in total is just too long. It's, I think, 2 hours and 49 minutes long, almost 3 hours. And in a lot of ways, it felt like two movies just jammed together. I feel like they could have done like one movie where it's like John Wick is in Japan and he's dealing with all that stuff. And we introduced Kane and Akira and her father, I forgot his name already, Koji. Cool, that's fine. And then we have a third movie or a fourth movie, a fifth movie, I suppose, where John Wick goes to France and Germany and we get to see his adventures in Europe. I don't know, maybe it's just easier for me to compartmentalize it that way and to keep them straight. But yeah, I just felt like it was almost like it felt like two movies or even like 3 episodes of a really good TV show all stuck together. And I feel like I read at some point they were going to film 4 and 5 together. And it almost feels like maybe that's what they did. They did film 2 movies and then they just jammed them together into one 3-hour movie. And we're like, here you go. And I only bring it up because, like with Avatar, I knew it was going to be 3 hours going into it, and I expected that. With this one, I didn't know. I mean, it's my fault for not paying attention, I guess, but I didn't assume John Wick would be almost 3 hours long. I assumed hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at most, and maybe 2.5. But yeah, 2:49, I definitely felt the runtime, and it definitely felt like they could have cut some stuff out of it, as far as I'm concerned. And then another thing that I've started to think about with this one and the last John Wick movie, especially, is he just immortal? Can he just like, because it seems like he will just like fall very long distances. I think in the last one he like falls after Ian McShane shoots him. He falls like onto a fire escape and then like onto another like awning and then onto the floor. I'm like, okay, I guess those kind of broke his fall. I would still think he'd be pretty injured, but it could happen, But in this movie, again, he falls like a good 3 or 4 stories, I think a couple times, and he's just like, okay, he's fine. Like the same thing happened in the Black Widow movie, which again, I know what happens. It happens all the time. We hear stories about people falling out of airplanes and somehow surviving. But that seems pretty lucky and pretty fortunate. And it seems like the dude would be a little bit more hurt than than he is. So I realize it's a movie and you got to do stuff, but at some point, it's the suspension of disbelief is pushed a little too far for me. I guess it does explain why he runs so funny. But some of the CGI too, especially in the overhead scene, to me looked a little off, a little weird, a little funny. Maybe it's just because the way it was shot. And honestly, maybe it wasn't CGI. Maybe it just the lighting made it look weird to me, or I just don't know what I'm talking about. But there's a couple parts that stood out to me is just kind of taking me out of the movie a little bit, I think. So other than that, the movie is directed by Chad Stahelski. He directed the last 3. The first one he and David Leitch did together. It was written by Shay Hatten and Michael Finch. This is the first one not to be written by Derek Kolstad. Although I believe Shay Hatten did write the third one with him, and he also wrote Army of Dead, and Michael Finch wrote Predators and American Assassin. None of those are things that particularly stuck me as being well written. I mean, John Wick 3 was fine, but yeah. There is a post-credit scene in this movie. I did not see it. I missed it because, like I said, I kind of got home. I was like, man, the movie's longer than I expected. And I went to go pee, and then I was going to look up see, but I'm like, nah, there's not going to be a post-credit scene. And yep, there sure is. So I have not seen it. From what I understand, though, Akira goes to confront Kane, and right before we sort of see what happens, it just cuts to black. So it seems to be maybe leading toward maybe a spinoff with Akira, which could be cool. I thought she was great in this, and I was very impressed by her performance. So if not a spinoff for her, I hope that the actress Rina Sawayama, I hope she finds more work because she was great in this. Is this the final movie? Maybe. It seemed that way. They sort of made it seem like John Wick died, which surprised me. I was very much expecting John Wick to pop up, like as they pan away from like the cemetery. You see like Keanu Reeves standing by a tree or something and like walking away. They didn't do that. But yeah, we did not see John's dead body. And if you can fall several, 100 feet or dozens feet from a building and survive, then I don't see why getting shot would necessarily kill him. But we didn't see the body, so as far as I'm concerned, they could easily bring the character back if they wanted to for a fifth movie. And it sounds like this movie's making a lot of money. I actually didn't write it down, but I saw somewhere big opening weekend for it, so I'm sure it's going to be quite successful. I actually did write it down. It's got a $100 million budget, and I think I was reading a $70 million opening. I feel like that's actually gone up since I saw that, though. Rotten Tomatoes score on this one is a weird one where the critics and the audience are pretty aligned, at least when I looked a couple days ago. 95. Both of them have the exact same score. And this is one where both critics and audience think it's great. And I've heard a lot of people say it's a masterpiece. It's a perfect movie. I don't think it is. I think it's a little too long and could have used a little more judicious editing, but it is a very good movie. And there's some very amazing, very good action sequences in this. There's apparently also working on a Continental TV show, which some of this felt like they were really doing a lot of world building here. And there's also an Ana de Armas ballerina movie coming out at some point. So there's more John Wick coming. If you're looking for John Wick, maybe Keanu Reeves might show up in that ballerina movie. I'm not sure. They could easily do stuff where they go back in time and show him even if his character is dead. And like I said, they could easily bring his character back, and I don't think it would be too hard to do. So as far as my score on this movie, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was a really good, very well-made movie. And for what it is, which is the action sort of gun fu, shooting people and doing kung fu type stuff, it's great. It really works. And it's for a fourth movie in a franchise, it's fresh and interesting. But it is too damn long. And I almost would have been better just having two separate movies here. I don't know why I'm complaining about getting more for my money, but that's my only complaint. I think it's a little bit too much movie for me. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night. I'll see you here again next week.